want to talk a little bit about what has been taking place throughout the country as far as professional sports is concerned. If you weren't already aware, Major League Baseball is now in full action. And yesterday was certainly a nice start, although it was a little weird to see fans not in the stands. So at the earlier Yankee Nationals game, the opening day at the Dodger Stadium saw the playing of a video from the Players Alliance, a group of African-American players calling for racial justice. The Dodgers coaching staff and the entire San Francisco Giants squad wore T-shirts with Black Lives Matter written on it during the pregame warm-ups. Both teams took a knee and held a black ribbon encircling the field during a moment of silence following the Players Alliance video. During the national anthem, several Giants players, including manager Gabe Kapler, continued to take a knee, as they had during exhibition games in San Francisco. Mookie Betts, who I'm a big fan of, former Boston Red Sox, the only African-American player, by the way, on the Dodgers, he also took a knee. Cody Bellinger and Max Muncy stood beside him with their hands on his shoulders. The Nationals announced that a Black Lives Matter MLB stencil would appear on the mound for their season opening series against the Yankees as well. I used to go to Fenway when I was a kid. And when I was at Fenway, it was a great time. In the front of Fenway, there is a huge sign that says Black Lives Matter. There are also going to be patches on jerseys of many of these players. Besides the kneeling, on helmets, there's going to be little decoys on these little things on these helmets. Also, NBA games, there's going to be BLM on NBA courts. So here's my opinion on this. I think they're going a little bit overboard. I don't have a problem with the kneeling. I've never had a problem with the kneeling. As long as the owners and the people that write their paychecks have no problem with it, I have no problem with the kneeling. It doesn't bother me one bit. I think they're going a little bit overboard with all the patches and everything. Do I think it's going to hurt sales? It's going to hurt money? No. So my question to the listeners is this. Do you have a problem with Black Lives Matter signs everywhere in professional sports? On jerseys, on courts, on football fields? Do you have a problem with that on helmets? Do you have a problem with players kneeling still? Do you have a problem with the patches? Do you have a problem with Black Lives Matter signs on the middle of an NBA basketball court? I'll open up the phone lines now. 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. 702-257-5396. My personal opinion, it won't stop me from watching sports. I think maybe they're going a little bit overboard with this. I think what would be a nice gesture is if they also put something up there supporting the police. If we had a moment of solidarity where you could have a Black Lives Matter sign, but also have a Blue Lives Matter sign.
That actually happened. So James Harden, obviously, he's an all-star player for the Houston Rockets. He accidentally wore a mask, a Blue Lives Matter mask, and he was crucified on Twitter for it. Almost every single player in the NBA called him out for accidentally wearing a mask that had support the police on it. So that's not going to take place, Brian.
I'm just saying that would be a good thing to do, I think.
More than 50% of the country right now is opposed to Black Lives Matter. A lot of people are, this is going to alienate a lot of fans, whether it's WNBA, MLB, NBA, NFL. And I don't think these professional athletes know that the reason their salary caps are so high and they're making so much money is because of the viewership and the ratings. And as that goes down and the TV deal goes down and the endorsement deals go down, their salary drops with it. And for the average person, when they watch sports, unless you're a guy like me and you wager sports professionally, and so I have to watch no matter what I do. But an average casual fan, unless you're living in LA and you're a giant Lakers fan, you're not going to watch LeBron James play the Clippers or play the Bucks, because sports for you is a vacation. It's a vacation from your work. It's a vacation from politics. And right now, Black Lives Matter represents a lot of things to a lot of people that offend them, like looting and rioting and the denuclearization or the disruption of the nuclear family and Marxism. A lot of these things are being discussed, and people actually believe that those are represented by Black Lives Matter right now.
Where does it?
So
what can I just ask you?
On the actual website. On the actual website, it says.
You gotta let me jump in. Where does it say that 50% of people in this country are against Black Lives Matter?
Oh, I've seen a couple of various polls.
Where?
What? Do I have time?
Well, I'm curious. I haven't heard that before.
Okay, that's fine.
I think it's foolish.
It's not foolish at all.
Where did you read it?
I've seen a couple of different polls, Brian.
Where?
I can't
do me a
remember what they
favor.
were specifically.
Okay, fine, no problem. Do me a favor when we go on break, if you could, because I'm curious now. If you can tell me where you read that. I'm
Okay.
curious, but we got a lot of people on hold.
Okay, that's fine.
My opinion, again, I'm still going to watch sports. I think a lot of these, I think there's a lot of idiots out there that the kneeling thing. Well, I'm not going to watch the NFL anymore because players are kneeling. Trust me, those people. Hold on, let me just finish. Those people were still watching the NFL. They claim they weren't, but they were. These people that say they're not going to watch sports because of the Black Lives Matter patch, they're still going to watch. But we want to hear from you. What do you think about this? Do you think it's going a little overboard? Black Lives Matter on NBA courts, on helmets, players still kneeling, patches on jerseys. It's happening on Major League Baseball fields across the country. How do you feel about that? 257-5396 is the number to call. Why don't we start off with Sharon? Sharon is first on the Vegas Take. Sharon, we lost. Sharon! Sorry, that was my Ozzy Osbourne impersonation. Let's go to Elle. Elle is next on the Vegas Take. Elle, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Elle?
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, Brian, you love sports. I love sports. I particularly could care less. I think the pendulum may have swung a little too far. But for anybody that's just absolutely disgusted with this, I mean, search your souls because it's sports. If you like sports, you don't want to see the kneeling. You know the anthem starts. You know what time the game starts. Just don't tune in until the first pitch. I'm going to do that when
that's fair.
Idiot throws out the first pitch.
Elle, can I ask you something? That's a good point. Can I ask you something? I wouldn't have any problem with it if it was solidarity. I don't have a problem with Black Lives Matter so long as they also take the other side, put something up that says Blue Lives Matter, or honor a police officer every game.
Do it.
Put up a picture of.
But that's not going to work because one of the main messages of Black Lives Matter right now is defunding the police. It's ACAB. It's all these various things
Elle, why do you disagree?
that are putting police officers in a negative light and vilifying them.
Elle, go ahead.
I can say it. Okay. I disagree with what JD is saying. I disagree that 50% of this country, most of the country marching was with Black Lives Matter, so that's a horrible number.
True.
It may be 20%, but I'm very upset with Donald Trump starting the Yankees game off. I love the games. I love everything. I'm not going to tune in when he's there with all this.
And you know what, Elle? You're not alone. Elle, you're not alone. Yeah, sure.
So,
you're not alone, Elle. I got to get
the same thing.
Yeah, no, you're right. Elle, I got to get to some other calls. Always appreciate it
thanks
to
for calling.
hear from you. Thank you. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. You okay with what's going on with Black Lives Matter patches and on courts? It's going to be on courts, on football fields. Let's go to Paul. Paul, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
What's up, Paul?
Hey, guys. My biggest problem with Black Lives Matter is the hypocrisy of the whole thing. If they meant Black Lives Matter, they would be more concerned with. They only care about black lives taken by police officers, and that's my biggest problem with it.
I disagree. Hold on a second. Paul, hang on a second here. I do agree that there are some radicals out there and some of the organizers of Black Lives Matter. That might be the case. But you cannot convince me that
but leadership comes from the top down,
Please just let me finish. The majority of those in Black Lives Matter that support what is going on, that have been marching, the majority do believe that while Black Lives Matter when it comes to, police, they also believe Black Lives Matter when it comes to what's going on in Chicago or violence. You cannot convince me that the majority of the people in this country only care about Black Lives Matter when it comes to law enforcement. It's just not true.
Here's what I'm saying is another part of the hypocrisy is it's been just the same way the politicians on both sides have used black people as a pawn. I feel like now these big enterprises that are going to make money off of the Black Lives Matter is doing the same thing. And also, I experienced one of the Black Lives Matters protests in Huntington Beach. And let me tell you something, there were a whole lot more Caucasians protesting than African Americans. The Caucasians were the ones that were the most violent. They were the ones that were in the face of the police officers, and they were the ones, believe it or not, because there were two groups. And the Black Lives Matter people crossed the street to meet the other group.
Paul, I have no doubt.
There was a black guy on the other group. He was holding a Donald Trump flag. And all of these people, black and Caucasian, on the Black Lives Matter, were dropping the N-word on this dude.
Okay, well, I have not heard that story. I'm going to assume that you're telling the truth, but just because you had an experience like that does not mean that majority of those that are with the Black Lives Matter movement would call an African American the N-word. It also doesn't mean that they would be violent. 257-5396 is the number to call. I believe we have Joe next. Joe is next on the Vegas Take. Joe, what's up?
Hey, what's up, Joe?
How you gentlemen doing?
Good.
Doing all right.
Once again, my man, you are a breath of fresh air. I just want to say I'm not going to be watching any of this. I don't want to. I'm not going to support Marxists. I'm not going to support people that want to self-segregate and they just believe that their lives are the only things that matter.
So you think the majority of African Americans and those in the Black Lives Matter movement are all Marxist? Is that what you're saying?
No, I know that the three founders of the
I'm not talking about the three founders. I'm not talking about the three founders. I'm talking. I'll tell you why. Why not? I'll tell you why not. Because there are millions of people throughout the country that have protested. I'm not talking about three people.
And they don't know. They don't know that the founders of the organization are Marxists.
Okay, so let's just say you're right. Let's just say all the
or the fact.
If I could just make everybody that's marching knows that these three women are Marxists.
Okay, so let's assume. Okay, let me respond. Let's assume that they're. Let's just assume that those organizers are Marxist. Does it take away from the millions?
No, they are Marxist.
How about letting me finish? Does that? Thank you very much. It's nice of you. How about the millions of people protesting that are protesting because they believe that they just want minorities and African Americans to be treated. If you could let me finish again. If you could, okay, let me know when. Okay, here's the problem. Here's the problem. You're not letting me finish the question that I'm asking you. Can you please let me finish the question, sir? And then I will give you ample time to answer. The millions of people throughout the country that are in the that agree in the Black Lives Matter movement that they want to be treated as equals, minorities I'm talking about, law enforcement, the way they treat minorities in this country. Does it take away from their feeling just because there might be 3 or 4 people that are Marxist, like you say, that are organizers of the Black Lives Matter movement? Are you willing to discredit the millions of people throughout the country that are not Marxist, that actually just want equality for minorities? Go.
No, I will not discount them. I don't believe that they know what's going that what's the true intentions of this group. Just like I know many people don't know in the African American community. They don't know about Planned Parenthood and how.
All right, let's go with that. I get your answer. Now let's go with that. Let's go with that for a second.
The founder was a eugenicist.
I understand about the founder. I know what you're saying.
You know that.
Okay,
right?
so I do. So let's go with what you just said. Let's assume that you're right. Let's assume that the millions of people across the country don't know that some of the organizers of Black Lives Matter, as you mentioned 3, are Marxist. So what? They're marching because they want minorities to be treated as equals when it comes to police.
And statistically, minorities are treated as equals when it comes to police.
Okay, well, that is idiotic for you to say that.
It's not idiotic.
Idiotic.
It's reality.
All right, so
FBI.ucr.gov will show you every single statistic, Brian.
Okay, you're right. So minorities are treated the same as you or me by law enforcement. Actually, that makes complete sense.
You know who's treated the worst by law enforcement?
That is absurd.
Is Hispanic Americans. It is not African Americans.
All right. So
African American. So Caucasian Americans or white are twice as likely to be killed by a police officer when they commit a violent crime. Yes, it is true. It is absolutely true.
No, it is not true.
It is absolutely true.
No, it's not.
African Americans.
Where did you get that stat from?
I just told you where.
Where?
FBI.ucr.gov, Brian.
So you're telling me.
Stop trying to catch me with my sources.
Well, because you're saying.
You're welcome to spend whatever time you want to looking up what you want to look up. We've had this conversation before.
You are saying.
That being said, there is one particular area. African Americans have a 40% chance, a higher chance than Caucasians, of being killed in an unarmed arrest than Caucasians do. That's the differential there.
Well, you just said it yourself. That basically you don't believe in systemic racism, and you think that.
No, I don't.
If I could finish,
no,
you don't
systemic
let me finish my sentence.
Police brutality, race-specific police brutality, does not exist in the United States of America.
Well, two words. George Floyd.
Based on the data.
2 words. George Floyd. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Scott. Scott, you're next on the Vegas Take. Scott, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Scott?
Gentlemen, what's up? I'm sure you've addressed this analogy. I can't call in as much as I like, but I still listen to your show.
We appreciate that.
What happened May 25th in Minneapolis set off, when George Floyd was murdered, set off just horrible things in this country: rioting, looting. On a scale of 1 to 10, would you say, this country pretty much reached a boiling point and it hit a 10 in regards to just frustration and rioting and looting? Can we kind of agree on that?
Repeat that one more time for me. I had trouble.
Meaning, like on a scale of 1 to 10,
yeah,
things got really bad in this country. Like 10 being,
things are really bad. Absolutely, I agree with you. Things are horrible. We got a pandemic. We have racial divide. We have political divide. I'm 40 years old, sir. I don't know how old you are. This is the weirdest time. 2020 is the weirdest year and the toughest year for this country since I've been alive.
And you don't think there's some type of association between the most polarizing and hated president probably in the last 50 years being the year that he gets elected? You don't think there's an association there, Brian? You just think it's just coincidence?
I'll answer that.
100% coincidence?
If you let me, I'll answer. I think it's George Soros and the deep state. That's what I think it is. Go ahead,
I'm not
sir.
saying it's George Soros.
No, it's George Soros, and it's a pizza parlor run by Hillary Clinton. Go ahead, caller.
All right. So my question for both of you. So if we can agree that just the rioting, the looting, it just went nuts because of what happened May 25th with George Floyd.
Right.
If the exact same situation had happened and the person who kneeled on his neck was a 35-year-old African American, on a scale 1 to 10, Black Lives Matter, rioting, looting, where would that have gone?
It wouldn't have gone. It wouldn't have gone. Listen, there have been, and it's a fair question to ask. I don't think it would have happened. That was certainly a trigger. Just like, listen, I'll be honest with you, caller, and it's a fair question you brought up. What took place in Ferguson was a travesty because Michael Brown was a thug. He didn't put his hands up. There was no hands up, don't shoot. And what you just said is correct. If it was a white person, by the way, I don't think a white person would have been treated like that in that situation, but let's just say if there was, no, we wouldn't have had these Black Lives Matter protests across the country. But what you just said still doesn't correlate to my opinion, which is this, and many across the country. Millions of people across the country are not Marxist. Millions of people across the country did not form Black Lives Matter. However, those millions of people that have been protesting, the majority of them are good people, and all they want is equality from minorities when it comes to law enforcement. Many of those people are not lighting things on fire. Many of those people are not rioting. Many of those people are not swearing at police and throwing ice bottles and other things. Many of those people are good people. I will not sit here and allow people to call the entire Black Lives Matter protest and everyone involved in that a Marxist, because it is not factually accurate.
And that's not what's going on here, Brian. The Black Lives Matter, the organization, was founded by 3 Marxists. Right now, with what is going on right now, and the person that is handling or handled the money through ActBlue.com and through Thousand Currents, the 501c3, was Susan Rosenberg, who was a convicted terrorist. There has been violence associated with a lot of these protests. There has been looting associated with a lot of these protests. There's been a lot of very negative things that have come along with this, along with the talk about disrupting the nuclear family.
All right, so again,
defunding the police.
Again, that goes back to what
and then right now in America, with all these with all these small businesses about to go out of business, you're going to have a country that is much more reliant on the government than it ever has been. And if you've got an organization of people that are pushing communism and Marxism, and we're in the situation where that could actually be a reality, then you need to take it very seriously, and that's why I am.
Okay, well, it goes back to what I said earlier. We're going around in circles. Just because there might be 3 or 4 people that organized Black Lives Matter that might be Marxist,
it's not 3 or 4,
doesn't
Brian.
mean, okay, let's go 20, let's go 100, let's even go 1,000. That doesn't mean that the majority of the millions of people that are protesting are Marxist, because they're not, and it doesn't take away from what they're doing, and that is wanting equality for minorities when it comes to law enforcement. You could give me 1,000 Marxists or organizers of Black Lives Matter, and by the way, there's no proof of that. There might be a few. Doesn't mean there's 1,000, but even if there was 1,000, it doesn't take away the Black Lives Matter movement. Here's what we're doing. We're asking you, and we're taking your phone calls at 257-5396. We'll get to your calls on the other side of the break. Does it bother you? Black Lives Matter patches on Major League Baseball players. All these players, or many of them, kneeling. These patches that'll be on helmets. Black Lives Matter signs in the middle of the court at NBA games. Will that bother you? We want to hear from you.